My name is Lena Marlowe. I'm 28, and I built my life the boring way, calendar by calendar, pitch by pitch, year after year. Chicago doesn't reward wishful thinking. It rewards deliverables. I learned quickly that talent is only as valuable as the deadlines it meets. 6 years in marketing, a senior seat at a reputable agency, a few awards that look heavier than they are, and a reputation sturdy enough that when people search my name, the work shows up before the selfies. That's the life I purchased with my 20s. Not glamorous, but mine. My younger sister, Emily, 26 and magnetic, has the kind of charisma that makes a room lean closer. She graduated with the same degree I did, from the same university, and in our parents' heads, that made her my sequel. Except the sequel never found its genre. She bounced between temp gigs, learned just enough lingo to sound promising, and then the floor would give way beneath her. I tried to help. I edited her portfolio, sent her leads, dropped her name to the right people. Some things took, most didn't. The night everything tilted, I brought a good Zinfandel to my parents' house, because that is what you bring when you want to look easygoing in a home that loves appearances. The dining room was an exhibit of Sunday warmth. Candles, matching plates, the exact music my mother believes makes a family sound close. Emily left early, a friend emergency, a kiss on the cheek that smelled like a new perfume she couldn't afford. Then my parents asked me to sit. "We want to talk about the family," my dad said, which is what he says when he wants something you can't give without losing your balance. My mother folded her hands as if she might pray for the right words. "We're worried about Emily," she said, "about her confidence, about the way your success affects her." I nodded, already preparing a mentor speech in my head. I could set up mock interviews, refine her case studies, teach her to talk about failure convincingly. I was ready to be useful. Then my mother inhaled like she might dive. "We think it would be best if you changed your name. Professionally, just so it's easier for Emily." I laughed. I couldn't help it. It wasn't cruel. It was the kind of laugh you make when a floorboard turns out to be a trapdoor. They didn't laugh back. "It's really holding her back," my dad added, easing forward into a tone reserved for budget conversations. "Employers look her up and find you. They expect her to be at your level. It's not fair." Something in my chest went very, very quiet. My mother rushed in to soften it. "You've built such a solid reputation, honey. It would be a small change for you, but it could make such a difference for your sister." Small change. As if my name wasn't the scaffolding that holds the work up where people can see it. I explained, calmly at first, that changing my professional name would splinter my history, fracture my references, and muddy the Google trail that protects me. I offered alternatives. Emily could use her middle name, a stylized version of our last name, even a distinct brand alias. My parents shook their heads like I was missing the point. "Why should she have to change?" my mother asked. "You're already established. You could absorb it." Absorb it, like a spill on a carpet that looks fine after blotting but is ruined underneath. By the time I left their house, the Zinfandel tasted like a memory I didn't trust. I called my boyfriend Dylan from the curb where the streetlight painted the car gold. He answered on the second ring, voice warm with the kind of steadiness you don't notice until you need it. "How bad?" he asked. "They want me to erase myself," I said, and only then felt the sting behind my eyes. I told him everything, the candles, the music, the sentence that took my name out of my hands and placed it on the table like an apple they could split. He was quiet the way good listeners are, the way a wall holds a house up. "You're not changing your name," he said. "Not for optics. Not to enable whatever's really going on. Whatever's really going on." His words found a door I'd avoided. For weeks I'd been getting odd messages. Strangers on LinkedIn congratulating me on roles I hadn't taken. An email forwarded from a creative director I didn't know asking if I preferred L. Marlowe on my business cards. I had written it off as noise. It is dangerous, I reminded myself, to ignore patterns just because they're inconvenient. The next day I texted Emily, invited her to lunch at a neutral cafe where the tables were small enough to keep us honest. I promised myself I would be gentle. She arrived late, beautiful in a way that had always made me feel both protective and tired. Before I could speak, she sighed. "Are you still being difficult about the name thing?" I blinked. The choreography was already set, and I had missed rehearsal. "You knew about that conversation." "Of course." She stirred her iced coffee like it might confess something. It's not fair, Lena. We share a last name. When they Google it, they see you, and then if I'm not you, I'm a disappointment. Why should I have to go by E.A. Marlowe or some stagey fake? That's not me. I looked at her, at the smudge of eyeliner she hadn't noticed, at the pulse in her throat that jumped when she felt cornered. You could build your own name, Em. Your own version of it. She leaned back, a flinch disguised as a posture. People already assume I have your experience. That's not my fault. The sentence landed like a glass slipping from wet fingers. A small sound, then the idea of shattering. We ate in truce. On the sidewalk afterwards, she hugged me too quickly. Don't be selfish, she said into my hair. Just think about it. I walked away with the quiet certainty that thinking would not be the problem. That night, Dylan sat on my couch, legs tucked under him, as if compacting himself would make more room for my anger. He listened while I reconstructed the scene, moment by moment. He didn't tell me what to do. He didn't try to fix it. He only reached for my hand and held it like a lifeline is supposed to be boring, strong, reliable, there. My ex reached out today, he said finally, careful. Sabrina, the ex-girlfriend whose name still had the faint metallic taste of the past, worked at a mid-sized agency now. She asked if you'd be joining your sister on a new account they're staffing. Said it was great you two finally formalized the partnership. I told her I didn't know what she meant. A chill went through me, quick and clinical. Formalize the partnership. My name reverberated in a sentence I hadn't written. I opened my laptop. The light was too bright in the dark apartment, a theater spotlight I hadn't earned. I typed my sister's name into LinkedIn first, then into Google, then into the search fields of smaller places where reputation is traded like currency. Portfolio hubs, speaker rosters, event bios. What I found made my mouth go dry. It wasn't just confusion. It was choreography, experiences that mirrored mine with dates that almost lined up, case studies that were mine, campaigns I had led, decks I had sleeplessly built, now wearing different fonts and slightly altered metrics, like a face with just enough makeup to pass for a cousin. An email address, one letter off from mine, and then, God help me, the signature. My full name, typed in clean sans serif, at the bottom of an email I did not write, attached to a resume that was mine, except where it wasn't. I took screenshots, then more. I whispered the steps as if speaking them aloud might make them smaller. Document, compare, timestamp, archive. Dylan didn't interrupt. He stood, got water, set it down beside me with a soft sound that felt like permission to keep breathing. My phone vibrated, a message request from someone I didn't know. Hi, Lena. Quick question. Are you open to a senior role? We've just interviewed your sister, and we'd love to talk about how you two would split leadership. Split leadership. The words looked like they belonged to a language I hadn't agreed to learn. I scrolled and felt the borders of my name blur like watercolor left in the rain. Somewhere between anger and nausea, I recognized it. The moment when a thing stops being a misunderstanding and becomes a choice. The cursor pulsed on an empty email to an attorney I knew by reputation, a specialist in identity, in the thin wires that hold our professional selves to our legal ones. I didn't send it yet, not because I doubted the truth, because I understood the cost of naming what was happening. I closed my eyes and saw my mother's hands folded like a prayer. Small change. My father's voice. Absorb it. Emily's sigh. It's not my fault if people assume. I opened my eyes, put my fingers back on the keys, and began to write down everything I could prove. By morning, my inbox looked like a crime scene. Half congratulations, half confusion. All addressed to me for work I'd never done. The subject lines read like postcards from a version of my life that didn't exist. Loved your presentation with Emily. Impressive campaign metrics. So excited to finally collaborate again. I sat in silence, coffee cooling beside me, scrolling through the evidence of a reality someone else had built with my name. Then I did what I always do when panic threatens to swallow me whole. I made a list. 1. Document everything. 2. Consult legal advice. 3. Protect reputation first, emotions later. It wasn't anger yet. It was clarity sharpened to a dangerous edge. That afternoon, I met with a lawyer recommended by one of my colleagues, Ms. Donnelly, a sharp-eyed woman who had probably seen more betrayal in contracts than most therapists do in marriages. I showed her the screenshots, the duplicate portfolios, the forged signature. She didn't flinch. Your sister's actions qualify as identity theft and professional fraud, she said, and the fact that she's benefiting from it, applying for jobs, presenting your work, makes it actionable. The word actionable echoed in my skull like a verdict. I asked her what my options were. Cease and desist first, she said. If she stops immediately, you avoid escalation. But if she continues, you'll need to file formally. That night, I sat on the floor of my living room while Dylan drafted the letter beside me, careful and quiet. He didn't speak much, only looked up once to say, "You're protecting yourself, Lena, not attacking her." The next day, I sent it. Then I drove to my parents' house, armed not with anger, but with proof. My mother answered the door, her expression tightening the way it does when she senses confrontation. "Lena, sweetheart, you look pale. Are you okay?" "I will be," I said, stepping inside, "once you both see this." I laid everything out on their dining table. The mirrored resumes, the fake emails, the company references that had already started calling me to verify her. Each page landed like a weight. When I finished, I looked up, waiting for shock, for disappointment, for anything. But my father just sighed. "She's just trying to get her foot in the door," he said. "You've already made it." "She's committing fraud," I replied. "That's not ambition. That's theft." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "Lena, you have so much. Would it really hurt you to share a little of your success? She's your sister." I stared at her. "You're asking me to condone her lying about who she is. You'd rather I lose my credibility than she lose face?" "She's doing what she has to," my father said quietly. "Family should help family." And that's when I knew. They weren't just aware of what she was doing. They had encouraged it. The name change request hadn't been about confusion. It had been about convenience. My existence was making Emily's deception messy. I left without another word. The next morning, Emily texted me. "You didn't have to go nuclear. You've ruined everything." She followed with a dozen more messages, alternating between anger and self-pity. I didn't reply. Instead, I contacted LinkedIn, portfolio sites, and HR departments at agencies I'd worked with. I reported every false account, every forged file. It was slow, humiliating work, like untangling yourself from a web someone spun in your own handwriting. By the third day, once my professional contacts reached out, a creative director named Sabrina, the same Sabrina who used to date Dylan years ago. "I thought you should know," she said over the phone, her voice polite but tense. "We just rescinded a job offer to your sister. She had presented work that didn't belong to her. Once we realized what was happening, we wanted to warn you. Your name's been attached to some questionable things." I thanked her, heart pounding. When the call ended, Dylan reached for my hand. "You okay?" "I think this is the part," I said, "where everything starts breaking at once." Within hours, my parents called. I didn't answer the first 3 times, but they persisted until I finally did. My mother's voice was raw. "She's devastated, Lena. They took back her job. Do you know what that's done to her confidence?" "I know she did it to herself," I said. "You could have helped her. You could have covered for her just until she got settled." "Covered for fraud?" I almost laughed. "Do you hear yourself?" "You've always been selfish," my father cut in. "You got the brains, the talent, the career, and you still can't share." That word again, share, as if integrity were pie. I hung up. Then, for the first time in years, I blocked both their numbers. The silence that followed was heavy, but clean. Days blurred. My lawyer filed the cease and desist formally. HR scheduled a meeting. Dylan stayed close, but never crowded. I stopped sleeping properly. Dreams kept looping back to the same image. 2 signatures side by side, identical except for the intent behind them. At the HR meeting, my boss leaned forward across the table. "We believe you," she said. "We know your work, but we need to make sure your name stays protected." Together, we drafted a professional statement to circulate quietly within industry circles, a clarification that certain materials and communications might have been sent under my name without authorization. It was mortifying, necessary, and strangely freeing. That evening, I stood on my balcony watching the lights of the city blink on one by one. Every window seemed to hold a version of a life. Someone cooking dinner, someone arguing, someone waiting. I wondered which version of me my parents saw, the one who achieved too much, or the one who didn't forgive enough. Dylan joined me, arms around my shoulders. "You did the right thing," he said. "Then why does it feel like I'm the villain?" "Because you're the only one who's not pretending this is love." He was right. 2 weeks later, an email arrived from an old classmate of Emily's. "Hey, Lena, heard about the situation. Thought you should know." Emily's been claiming for years that she taught you everything you know. I stared at the words until they blurred. This wasn't desperation. It was a story she'd been telling for years. The realization hit like a cold wave. She hadn't started borrowing my identity out of panic. She'd been rewriting our history piece by piece until even she believed it. The mirror hadn't cracked overnight. It had been lying to me for a long time. That night, I opened a new folder on my laptop and titled it Evidence of Reclaimed Self. Inside, I saved 3 things: the original cease and desist, a new professional headshot, and a blank document for what came next. Because whatever this story was, victim, villain, sister, I wasn't going to let someone else keep writing it. It took 2 months before I saw Emily again. 2 months of rebuilding everything she'd tried to dismantle. My professional presence, my peace, even my sense of who I was outside of her shadow. By then, the noise had quieted. The false profiles were gone, my network had been updated, and the industry gossip cycle had moved on. But I still woke up some mornings expecting another email that didn't belong to me. Then one afternoon, a message arrived from Emily. "Can we talk? Please, just once." Dylan looked at me over dinner. "You don't owe her anything," he said softly. "I know," I said, "but maybe I owe myself closure." We met at a cafe on the north side, neutral ground again, where the smell of espresso was strong enough to cover the sound of breaking things. She looked smaller somehow. Her confidence collapsed into something brittle. "I know what I did was wrong," she began before I could speak. "You don't have to say it. I already know." I studied her face. For the first time, there was no defiance, just exhaustion. "Why, Em?" My voice was quieter than I expected. "Why would you do all of it? The fake emails, the portfolio, the lies?" Her eyes filled. "Because I was tired of being your sister. Mom and Dad never stopped comparing us. Every win you had was another reminder that I wasn't enough. I thought, if I could just reach your level, they'd finally see me." She looked down at her coffee, fingers trembling. "At first, it was little things, using your resume as a reference, copying your layout. Then it became easier to just be you. Everyone treated me better when they thought I was." The words sliced, but they also explained everything. I exhaled. "You could have asked for help. You didn't need to steal my name." She laughed weakly. "Help? You were always the one who didn't need help. Mom and Dad made you the standard, not me. I thought if I told you, you'd think I was pathetic." I leaned forward. "You don't have to be me to matter, Emily. But if you keep living through someone else's name, you'll never know who you actually are." For a long moment, we sat in silence. Outside, a bus hissed to a stop. A child laughed. The world moved like it always does when yours feels frozen. Finally, she whispered, "I'm sorry." I nodded. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. She told me she'd started seeing a therapist, that she was exploring a niche in event marketing. Something smaller, quieter, but her own. She promised she'd deleted everything that wasn't real. I wanted to believe her. Maybe part of me did. When we stood to leave, she hesitated. "Do you think Mom and Dad will ever understand?" "I don't know," I said, "but I'm done trying to make them." That evening, I drove straight to my parents' house. No warning. No dinner table diplomacy this time. They looked startled when I walked in. My father's voice was careful. "Lena, is everything all right?" "No," I said, "but it will be once I say this." I told them everything. What Emily had confessed, how their comparisons had poisoned both of us, how their pressure had turned love into competition. My mother tried to interrupt, but I raised a hand. "You wanted me to change my name to make things easier," I said, "but you never realized what that name cost me to build. You think family means sacrificing yourself to keep the peace? It doesn't. It means telling the truth, even when it breaks the illusion." My father looked down, ashamed. My mother's eyes glistened, but for once, she didn't cry to deflect. "We just wanted both our daughters to be happy," she murmured. "Then stop teaching us that happiness comes from pretending one of us doesn't exist," I said. For the first time, they didn't argue. When I left their house that night, the air felt lighter. Not healed, just breathable. The weeks that followed felt strange, quieter. My phone didn't buzz with drama. My parents sent tentative texts, soft check-ins without judgment. Emily and I exchanged slow, cautious messages, not about the past, but about small, ordinary things. Then came the call from my boss. "Lena," she said, "the campaign you led last quarter just got shortlisted for a national award. They want you to present it at the conference next month." For a moment, I couldn't speak. When I hung up, Dylan lifted me off the ground in a hug that smelled like relief. "You earned this," he said. "Your name belongs to you." It wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't even about justice. It was about reclaiming the right to exist fully, without apology. At the conference, under the soft glare of stage lights, I introduced myself with deliberate clarity. Good afternoon. My name is Lena Marlowe. A pause. The name settled into the microphone, into the air, into me. I spoke about the campaign, the creativity, the lessons, but between the lines, I was speaking about something else entirely. About identity, about boundaries, about the courage it takes to keep your name when everyone wants a piece of it. Afterward, in the hallway, I saw Emily standing at the back of the crowd. She didn't approach, just smiled. Small, genuine, enough. Maybe that was all the closure we'd get. Maybe that was enough. Because in the end, what we keep is not the version of ourselves our family wants. It's the version we fight to define, the one that survives the rewriting. And as I walked out into the Chicago evening, my badge still clipped to my blazer, I felt something settle inside me. Not victory, not vengeance, just peace, spelled the same way as my name.